You have stopped in an emergency area. What must you do before you rejoin the carriageway? Use the emergency telephone. To rejoin the carriageway from an emergency area, you must use the emergency telephone and follow the operator's advice. A lane may have to be closed so that you can rejoin the carriageway safely. You stop on the hard shoulder of a motorway and use the emergency telephone. Where's the best place to wait for help to arrive? When you're on the hard shoulder, you're at risk of being injured by motorway traffic. The safest place to wait is away from the carriageway, but near enough to see the emergency services arriving. Well away from the carriageway. What restrictions apply if you're towing a trailer on a 3-lane motorway? You must not use the right-hand lane. The motorway regulations for towing a trailer state that you mustn't use the right-hand lane of a 3-lane motorway unless directed to do so, for example, at roadworks or due to a lane closure, and you mustn't exceed 60 miles per hour. What helps to reduce traffic bunching on a motorway? Variable speed limits. Where are amber reflective studs found on a motorway? Between the central reservation and the carriageway. On motorways, reflective studs of various colors are fixed in the road between the lanes. These help you to identify which lane you're in when it's dark or in poor visibility. Amber-colored studs are found on the right-hand edge of the main carriageway, next to the central reservation. What does 25 mean on this motorway sign? The number of the next junction. Before you set out on your journey, use a road map to plan your route. When you see an advance warning of your junction, make sure you get into the correct lane in plenty of time. Last-minute harsh braking and cutting across lanes at speed is extremely hazardous. What color are the reflective studs between a motorway and a slip road? Green. The studs between the carriageway and the hard shoulder are normally red. These change to green where there's a slip road, helping you to identify slip roads when visibility is poor or when it's dark. When should you use the left-hand lane of a motorway? When the road ahead is clear. Your vehicle has broken down on a motorway. In which direction should you walk to find the nearest emergency telephone? In the direction shown on the marker posts. Along the hard shoulder there are marker posts at 100-meter intervals. These will direct you to the nearest emergency telephone. What color are the reflective studs between the hard shoulder and the left-hand lane of a motorway? Red. Red studs are placed between the edge of the carriageway and the hard shoulder. Where slip roads leave or join the motorway, the studs are green. What should you do while you're driving or riding along a motorway? Look much further ahead than you would on other roads. Traffic on motorways usually travels faster than on other roads. You need to be looking further ahead to give yourself more time to react to any hazard that may develop. What color are the reflective studs along the left-hand edge of the motorway? Red. Reflective studs are used to help you in poor visibility. Different colors are used so that you'll know which lane you're in. These are found in the following places: red on the left-hand edge of the carriageway, white between lanes, amber on the right-hand edge of the carriageway, green between the carriageway and slip roads. Where would you find green reflective studs on a motorway? At slip road entrances and exits. You're towing a trailer along a 3-lane motorway. When may you use the right-hand lane? When there are lane closures. If you're towing a caravan or trailer, you mustn't use the right-hand lane of a motorway with 3 or more lanes except in certain specified circumstances, such as when lanes are closed. You're traveling along a motorway. Where would you find a crawler or climbing lane? On a steep gradient. Large, slow-moving vehicles can hinder the progress of other traffic. On a steep gradient, an extra crawler lane may be provided for slow-moving vehicles to allow faster-moving traffic to flow more easily. What would you expect to find at a contraflow system on a motorway? Lower speed limits. When approaching a contraflow system, reduce speed in good time and obey all speed limits. You may be traveling in a narrower lane than normal, with no permanent barrier between you and the oncoming traffic. Be aware that the hard shoulder may be used for traffic and the road ahead could be obstructed by slow-moving or broken-down vehicles. Traffic officers operate on motorways and some primary routes in England and Wales. What are they authorized to do? Stop and direct anyone on a motorway. You're on a 3-lane motorway. Which lane are you in if there are red reflective studs on your left and white ones to your right? In the left-hand lane. The colors of the reflective studs on the motorway and their locations are red, between the hard shoulder and the carriageway, white, between lanes, amber, between the carriageway and the central reservation, green, along slip road exits and entrances, and bright green/yellow, at roadworks and contraflow systems. You're traveling along a motorway. When are you allowed to overtake on the left? When in queues and traffic to your right is moving more slowly than you are. You're traveling in the left-hand lane of a 3-lane motorway. How should you react to traffic joining from a slip road? Adjust your speed or change lane if you can do so safely. Plan well ahead when approaching a slip road. If you see traffic joining the motorway, be prepared to adjust your speed or move to another lane if it's safe to do so. This can help the flow of traffic joining the motorway, especially at peak times. How should you rejoin the motorway after a breakdown on the hard shoulder? Build up speed on the hard shoulder before looking for a safe gap in the traffic. To rejoin a motorway from the hard shoulder, you first need to build up speed on the hard shoulder. You can then look for a safe gap in the traffic in the left-hand lane. Watch for traffic that may be returning from a lane on the right into the left-hand lane. What should you do when going through a contraflow system on a motorway? Keep a good distance from the vehicle ahead. At roadworks, and especially where a contraflow system is operating, a speed restriction is likely to be in place. Keep to the lower speed limit, don't switch lanes, and don't get too close to the vehicle in front of you. Be aware that there will be no permanent barrier between you and the oncoming traffic. How do motorways reduce traffic bunching? By using variable speed limits. You must follow the mandatory signs on the gantries above motorway lanes, including the hard shoulder. Variable speed limits help keep the traffic moving and also help to prevent bunching. On a 3-lane motorway, which lane should you use if there's no traffic ahead? Left. On a 3-lane motorway, you should travel in the left-hand lane unless you're overtaking. This applies regardless of the speed at which you're traveling. Which vehicles should use the left-hand lane on a 3-lane motorway? Any vehicle that isn't overtaking. On a motorway, all traffic should use the left-hand lane unless overtaking. When overtaking a number of slower vehicles, move back to the left-hand lane when you're safely passed. Check your mirrors frequently and don't stay in the middle or right-hand lane if the left-hand lane is free. What color are the reflective studs between the lanes on a motorway? White. White studs are found between the lanes on motorways. They reflect back the light from your headlights. This is especially useful in bad weather, when visibility is restricted. Your vehicle broke down on the hard shoulder of a motorway, but has now been repaired. How should you rejoin the main carriageway? Gain speed on the hard shoulder before moving out onto the carriageway. Signal your intention and build up sufficient speed on the hard shoulder so that you can filter into a safe gap in the traffic. Don't push your way into a small gap or cause other traffic to alter speed or direction. What should you do if your vehicle has a puncture on a motorway? Pull up on the hard shoulder or in an emergency area and call for assistance. You're joining a motorway from a slip road. How should you deal with traffic already on the motorway? Match your speed to traffic in the left-hand lane and filter into a safe gap. How should you position yourself when you use the emergency telephone on a motorway? Face the oncoming traffic. Why is it particularly important to check your vehicle before making a long motorway journey? Continuous high speeds increase the risk of your vehicle breaking down. What does this sign mean? Lane for heavy and slow vehicles. Where there's a long, steep, uphill gradient on a motorway, a crawler lane may be provided. This helps the traffic to flow by diverting the slower heavy vehicles into a dedicated lane on the left. How should you use the lanes on a motorway? Keep to the left-hand lane unless you're overtaking. You should normally travel in the left-hand lane unless you're overtaking a slower moving vehicle. When you've finished overtaking, move back into the left-hand lane, but don't cut across in front of the vehicle that you've overtaken. Your vehicle breaks down on a motorway and you manage to stop on the hard shoulder. What should you do if you use your mobile phone to call for help? Check your location from the nearest marker posts beside the hard shoulder. You should use an emergency telephone when you break down on the motorway. Only use your mobile if this isn't possible. The emergency services need to know your exact location so they can reach you as quickly as possible. Look for a number on the nearest marker post beside the hard shoulder. Give this number when you call the emergency services. Stay in the left-hand lane. What should you do immediately after joining a motorway? Stay in the left-hand lane. You're driving on the motorway. What should you do if luggage falls from your vehicle? Stop at the next emergency telephone and report the incident. If any object falls onto the motorway carriageway from your vehicle, pull onto the hard shoulder near an emergency telephone and call for assistance. Don't stop on the carriageway or attempt to retrieve anything. When may you use hazard warning lights? When driving on a motorway to warn traffic behind of a hazard ahead. Hazard warning lights are an important safety feature. Use them when driving on a motorway to warn traffic behind you of danger ahead. You should also use them if your vehicle has broken down and is causing an obstruction. When may you use hazard warning lights while you're driving? On a motorway or unrestricted dual carriageway, to warn of a hazard ahead. When there's queuing traffic ahead and you have to slow down or even stop, briefly showing your hazard warning lights will help alert the traffic behind to the hazard. Why is it important to make full use of the slip road as you join a motorway? To allow you to fit safely into the traffic flow in the left-hand lane. Try to join the motorway without affecting the progress of the traffic in the left-hand lane and always give way to traffic already on the motorway. At busy times, you may have to slow down to merge into slow-moving traffic. When would you use the right-hand lane on a 3-lane motorway? When you're overtaking. The right-hand lane of the motorway is for overtaking. Sometimes you may be directed into a right-hand lane as a result of roadworks or a traffic incident. This will be indicated by signs or officers directing the traffic. You're on a motorway. What does it mean when a mandatory speed limit is displayed above the hard shoulder? The hard shoulder can be used as a running lane. A mandatory speed limit sign above the hard shoulder shows that this part of the road can be used as a running lane between junctions. You must stay within the speed limit. Look out for vehicles that may have broken down and could be blocking the hard shoulder. What does this sign mean? Contraflow system. If you use the right-hand lane in a contraflow system, you'll be traveling with no permanent barrier between you and the oncoming traffic. Observe speed limits and keep a good distance from the vehicle ahead. Which vehicles are prohibited from using the motorway? Powered mobility scooters. Motorways mustn't be used by pedestrians, cyclists, motorcycles under 50 cc, certain slow-moving vehicles without permission, and powered wheelchairs/mobility scooters. What do these motorway signs mean? They're countdown markers to the next exit. The exit from a motorway is indicated by countdown markers. These are positioned 90 meters, 100 yards, apart, the first being 270 meters, 300 yards, from the start of the slip road. Move into the left-hand lane well before you reach the start of the slip road. You're driving on a motorway. What does it mean if the car in front shows its hazard warning lights for a short time? Traffic ahead is slowing or stopping suddenly. If the vehicle in front shows its hazard warning lights, there may be an incident, stop traffic or queuing traffic ahead. By keeping a safe distance from the vehicle in front, you're able to look beyond it and see any hazards well ahead. You're driving on a motorway. What does it mean if the car in front shows its hazard warning lights for a short time? Traffic ahead is slowing or stopping suddenly. You're driving on the motorway. Which lane should you get into well before you reach your exit? The left-hand lane. You'll see the first advanced direction sign 1 mile from a motorway exit. If you're traveling at 60 miles per hour in the right-hand lane, you'll only have about 50 seconds before you reach the countdown markers. There'll be another sign at the half-mile point. Don't cut across lanes of traffic at the last moment, move to the left-hand lane in good time. What should you do if you see a large box fall from a lorry onto the motorway? Go to the next emergency telephone and report the hazard. Lorry drivers can be unaware of objects falling from their vehicles. If you see something fall onto a motorway, look to see if the driver pulls over. If they don't stop, don't attempt to retrieve the object yourself. Pull onto the hard shoulder near an emergency telephone and report the hazard. You're traveling on a motorway in England. When must you stop your vehicle? When signaled to stop by a traffic officer. You'll find traffic officers on motorways and some primary routes in England and Wales. They work in partnership with the police, helping to keep traffic moving and helping to make your journey as safe as possible. It's an offence not to comply with the directions given by a traffic officer. When would you use an emergency area on a motorway? In cases of emergency or breakdown. On some motorways, emergency areas are built at the side of the carriageway. If you break down, try to get your vehicle into the emergency area where there's an emergency telephone. The phone connects directly to a control center. Before rejoining the motorway, you must call the control center. A lane may need to be closed to allow you to rejoin safely.